According to my phone, it is 6 o'clock, so I will call to order this meeting of the Noblesville Common Council for Tuesday, February 21st and 25th. If we will all rise. And Mr. Peterson, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lees, if you will call the roll.
Mr. Boyce?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Elliott?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Thurston?
Present.
Ms. Wiles?
Present.
Madam President, you have a quorum.
Wonderful. We will move on to the approval of the minutes from the February 11th, 2025 meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from February 11th. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0. Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0. Thank you very much. Petitions or comments by citizens who are present. I have several cards that have been filled out, but if anyone has not filled out a card, please do so, and then you can put it to the clerk's table. And what we'll do is have you come up after the developer has made the presentation for the subject that you are wanting to speak on. So we will now move to council committee reports. First one is public safety. Mr. Peterson.
Public safety met, when did we meet? Gosh.
Last one.
Yeah, last week. And we discussed the new police station. We discussed some of the budget things coming up soon, but most of our conversation revolved around the new police station. And it's a very exciting project. I thank Mr. Johnson for his involvement in getting that kicked off. That was kind of consumed our entire agenda. So.
Okay, awesome. Any questions, Mr. Peterson? Okay, we'll move on to the Downtown District Committee. Mr. Smith.
Downtown District met on February 21st. Megan Wiles, Darren Peterson, Dave Johnson, and myself were present, along with a whole host of folks from the community. We talked a lot about the new initiative looking at reinvestment in infrastructure downtown called Embrace Downtown. There'll be more on that as we move through the year. We talked through the Parks Master Plan update, what that timeline looks like, and how that will end up being implemented for our community over the next 5 years. And then Deputy Mayor Light touched on a few other infrastructure projects adjacent to downtown. So Pleasant Street, phases 2 and 3, the NDOT project that moved through last year. They have a few final items that they need to address this year, one of which was an additional crosswalk that's going across 32 at State Road 32 and 19 over by the park and the Cavo lot. They touched on the railroad bridge reinvestment that is going on currently that will be fixed hopefully in time for the duck race. That was the big timeline there. And then we talked about a few other projects that may come up over the span of the year, but it was a great discussion all around.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Smith? We'll move on to the Finance Committee. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. We met February 20th. Pete Schwartz, Aaron Smith, Todd Thurston, and myself. Amy Smith discussed with us a bond authorization for Hyde Park. Tom McDonald gave us a report on the quarterly financial for 2024, quarter 4. We had an update for the annual investment portfolio and a review with Paul Gifford and Amy Powers with First Source Bank. Jeff Spalding discussed an authorization to invest in a non-local certificates of deposit. Caitlin Kesner gave us the report on cancellation of all expired warrants. And Caitlin also gave us an annual report of the city accounts. And we finalized everything with a 2020 budget review update with Jeff Spalding. That and the claims dockets come to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Davis?
And I move to approve the claim.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the claims as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0. Great. Moving on to previously discussed ordinances. Council to consider ordinance number 03-02-25, an ordinance to reestablish the fire cumulative capital fund tax rate. Mr. Spalding.
Madam President, members of the council, Jeff Spalding, CFO and Controller, and this is likely the least interesting item on the agenda tonight because it has no real effect on anything, but it is required by state law. So what this is it sets the stage for the coming 2026 budget cycle. There is a maximum tax rate allowable in state law for one of our funds, the Fire Cumulative Capital Fund, but that fund is within other property tax controls like things that you're all heard about, the maximum levy, and then we establish an overall maximum tax rate for the city. So it's all within those controls, so any action here wouldn't change any of that. But to be able to have access to setting the rate for that fund up to the 3.33 cent maximum during the budget process, that you have to establish or pass this resolution tonight, then that gives you options as you pursue the budget. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Spalding? No?
Madam President, I would move to approve ordinance.
We have to open a public hearing.
All right.
So, we need to open the public hearing for ordinance number 03-02-25. Anyone who wishes to speak may approach the podium.
Madam President, seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for ordinance number 03-02-25. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0.
Thank you.
Now,
Madam President, I move to approve ordinance 03-02-25.
Second?
it has been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 03-02-25 as presented. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Lees.
Mr. Boyce,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mr. Elliott,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Peterson,
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Thurston,
Aye.
Ms. Wiles.
Aye.
9 ayes, 0 nay, the ordinance is approved.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to proposed development presentation. Council to hear an introductory information concerning preliminary development on approximately 3.887 acres for the construction of a Wawa fuel center and one additional vacant lot adjacent to the southeast intersection of East 191st Street and State Road 37. We will hear the presentation from the developer, and then the council will have an opportunity to ask some questions and for the developer to respond, and then we'll open it up for the public comment. Each person will have the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes, and then we'll close that opportunity. And just for information purposes, no action is being taken tonight on this. This is strictly an introduction. It will then move through the process of going to the Plan Commission, where there will be a public hearing at that time, so you'll be able to speak again and share your comments. And then finally, after Plan Commission comes back to council, and again, you'll have an opportunity to speak. So please know that sharing your comments tonight, the developers have an opportunity to go back and modify their plans as appropriate. So we will now, Mark Leach, if you'll please state your name and address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Leach. I'm a senior land use planner at Faegre Drinker. Offices at 600 East 96th Street, Suite 600, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240. Here representing Joe Farr with JDF 191st LLC, the petitioner. And also here with me this evening are Matt Brown, Vice President and Traffic Studies Manager with A&F Engineering, Patrick Moon, Real Estate Project Engineer at Wawa, and Andy Broker, Senior Counsel with Faegre Drinker. JDF is pleased to introduce a new planned development called Johnson Crossing at the southeast corner of 191st Street and State Road 37. Johnson Crossing will consist of a Wawa fuel center, convenience store with an online order-only pickup window, and a future commercial leased outlet to the east of Wawa. This location is near the northeastern corner of Noblesville. It is currently outside of the city boundary, but within the city's planning jurisdiction. And we have been in discussion with city planning staff regarding annexation into the city. We are currently working to have a fiscal analysis completed, and we anticipate filing the annexation application within the next month or so. The 2020 Noblesville Comprehensive Plan shows this location as commercial corridor on the future land use map. In fact, it shows commercial corridor all along the east side of State Road 37 from 191st Street down to State Road 32 and beyond. Per the comprehensive plan, the commercial future land use typology primarily supports commercial and retail uses such as shopping, dining, and entertainment, and the corridor commercial node description states that the corridor commercial serves the local population through medium-scale retail amenities and other commercial amenities. Other uses such as office space, entertainment, and dining may be permitted. The underlying zoning for Johnson Crossing will be planned business district, and the only permitted uses will be those listed in the UDO's commercial retail service uses category for the planned business district, except those that we have called out as prohibited uses in our proposed PD ordinance.
Can you
Proposed-
scooch that down on the screen just a little bit?
Oh.
We can't. Thank you. Nope, don't zoom out.
You
Go
good?
ahead, sorry.
Sorry, that's a page from our PD ordinance as well, so that's in the file. Proposed prohibited uses include things like commercial kennels, car sales, and bars or taverns. As seen on the thoughtfully designed concept plan, Johnson Crossing consists of a detention pond, a 16-pump Wawa fuel center convenience store, and an approximately 3/4 of an acre leased outlot. We would also build a public street to city standards running north to south at the far east end of the site and a privacy fence between the public street and the neighbor to the east. The public street is shown on the thoroughfare plan as a proposed collector street and would be provided because of this development. The street would help facilitate future development opportunities further to the south as well. Additionally, this project will include right-of-way dedication on the south side of 191st Street for future roadway improvements by the city of Noblesville. The additional right-of-way will provide adequate room for the city to upgrade the roadway network when decided it is needed. We had our TAC meeting last Thursday and received some technical feedback on the project, and so what you see in our presentation packet and on the screen here is it's in the process of being slightly adjusted to accommodate the TAC feedback we received. Illustrative building elevations and also three-dimensional renderings. Also, three-dimensional renderings of the Wawa can be seen in tab 4 of our presentation materials. And we've also included our preliminary development plan, landscaping plan, lighting plan, and sign exhibit for the Wawa store. Our proposed rezone and plan development ordinances have been filed, and those are available as well. Overall, we believe that the many neighboring areas near Johnson Crossing are underserved by high-end food, convenience, and gas options, as there are no high-end food convenience stores offering gas located north of State Road 32 along State Road 37 in Noblesville. With Noblesville seeing residential growth moving north along State Road 37, convenience stores are a much-needed amenity, and Wawa would be poised to become a commercial epicenter to the area. This stretch of State Road 37 has over 20,000 vehicles per day passing by the site, and an additional 5,300 vehicles per day travel on the east side of 191st Street. Vehicle traffic is growing in the area, and adding a convenience store that offers great food, coffee, and gas would serve as an essential and desirable amenity to the surrounding neighborhoods. Joe Farr has been working on this project for over a year and has met with and incorporated feedback from neighbors, city staff, and city officials on multiple occasions. And we understand that there are some neighbor concerns about traffic at the intersection. And Matt Brown, Vice President at A&F Engineering, has conducted a traffic impact study for this project and submitted that in January to the engineering department. And I'll ask him to come up and discuss that a little bit.
Good evening. My name is Matt Brown. As Mark said, I am Vice President and a Traffic Engineer at A&F Engineering. Our offices are at 8365 Keystone Crossing, Suite 201 in Indianapolis. In conjunction with the city engineering staff, a scope of work was set aside for the traffic impact study that included the intersections of State Road 37 and 191st Street, 191st Street and Promise Road, and Promise Road and 186th Street. In addition, the scenarios that we were tasked to look at were the existing traffic volume scenario, a year 2030 non-development traffic volume scenario, which just included natural growth in traffic due to other development outside of the area. And then the third scenario was the scenario that added on the proposed development. An analysis of the intersections showed that the intersection of State Road 37 and 191st Street is projected to operate at level service C when the proposed development traffic volumes are considered. The intersection of 191st and Promise is projected to operate at level service B, and the intersection of 186th and Promise is also projected to operate at level service B. In addition, it was recommended that a left turn lane and right turn lane would be constructed at the proposed development access drives to facilitate the 191st Street traffic that is not using the development to have a place to go around and not be caught in the queues from people turning into the development. After we submitted the study, I've talked to the city staff a couple times, and then of late, we have seen a little bit of concern over some of the queuing that is along the westbound approach at the 191st Street and State Road 37 intersection. I had been out there a time before we started this study, and then I've been out there a couple times since we've done this study. And that queuing is largely due, one, we're looking at a peak hour. That queuing exists for about an 8 to 12 minute time period on a typical day, and it is widely evident that it is all due to the school people wanting to deliver their kids to traffic or kids to school during that short time period where they want to get them there, drop them off, and then get out of there. So you've got a fairly large rush of traffic that's crossing the intersection. There's two schools there, Noblesville Elementary, and then Our Lady Grace is on the other side, on the north side. They deliver the traffic, and as soon as that traffic dissipates, the other 50 minutes of time, the intersection operates with no extreme queuing, no extreme delays. There's no cycle failures. Everybody's getting through with ample time, thus verifying that the intersection has some additional capacity. It's just that short time period when the traffic is flowing across the street to the schools, then there's a little bit of queuing and a little bit of delay. With that, I'll turn it back to Mark to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Total project costs will represent an investment of approximately $8 million in Noblesville community. Timing-wise, the Plan Commission public hearing is scheduled for March 17th, and we will mail out public notice of that hearing this week, and we will also invite neighbors to a neighbor meeting to be held a few weeks prior to the hearing at White River Elementary School. If ultimately approved by council, JDF expects development activities to begin in the spring of 2026. And with that, our team is happy to answer any initial questions you might have and to get your preliminary feedback on the project. Thank you so much.
Questions or comments?
Madam President, for those that are concerned of the negative impact that the Wawa would have as far as home values or sound pollution. What are the steps taking place for the light and sound pollution, and what impact, negative or positive, would this have to surrounding homes?
Well, regarding light and sound, any ordinance standards that you guys have in city ordinance would be met. For the, I guess, the light and sound towards the neighbor to the east, there's a privacy fence that will be installed up to 8 feet tall. But that's, and then landscaping and screening around the site as well. But that's kind of the extent of that. I think, you know, there's light standards in the ordinance that make sure light stays on property, and those would be followed. We're not asking for any waivers on light issues or light standards at all in our PD ordinance.
And then the type of lighting is pretty direct. It doesn't really filter out beyond the property.
Correct, yeah, you'll see in our packet, there's a photometric plan that kind of shows the foot candles around the property lines, and we have to meet certain requirements at the property line and can't go over those, and so everything would meet the ordinance requirements for that. Yes, sir.
Other questions?
I
Mr. Smith?
I have two. One is just to help make me smarter. You're talking about the rating scale of the intersections. You said C and B. What's the bottom rating? Like, what is that out of?
Yeah. I apologize, I probably should have talked about
You're
that.
fine.
So typically, it goes A through F.
Okay.
It's kind of like a grade in
Yep.
school. However, there's a E as well. Level service D is typically the lowest acceptable level of service that's deemed acceptable by cities and towns. And just for reference, within your road impact fee ordinance, we did the report for that, or the report for the road impact fee. The lowest acceptable level of service within that document is defined as D.
Thank you. And then, I don't know if this is something for you or for our team. Is there a minimum setback that's needed for an access road like this from a state road? I don't. It's fine
I
if-
don't know off the
Okay,
top of my head, but
alright.
I can look into that and
Yeah,
get back with
I
you.
would appreciate knowing that, because it does seem close to 37, but I was trying to think of other places along 37 that have a similar issue, but if we have that, I would like to know that at some point.
Yeah, I do know, I think, Matt, you're meeting on Thursday with NDOT, so Matt can discuss that with them and make sure NDOT's okay with that
Okay.
distance.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
two quick questions.
Yep.
The sight lines coming down the hill, that's been a concern raised as far as there's not much visibility until you get to a certain point when you're coming down that hill. Former Meadows resident here. So I know that when you're approaching that, the stops are going to be a little bit quicker as you're coming down that hill. Perhaps that was something addressed in TAC. Can you name, I guess, two things that came out of TAC that were primary concerns that are being addressed or in the works?
Sure, there's a couple things that have been updated on the latest plan here. Let's see if I can get a little bit. Originally, on the north side here, we were showing a right in and also a right out, but that's been removed, and the exit would just be over here on the far east side. There was an interlot access drive that was on the north side, and that's been moved to the south to allow development here to be pushed up closer to the street. And then also, before there was just a one-lane exit, and now that's been changed to a two-lane exit there. So there's been, oh, and sorry, finally, one other thing kind of in regards to your question about coming down the hill, there's a dedicated left turn lane into the site now, where before we weren't showing that. And then, so through traffic would go around the people that are turning into the Wawa at that location.
Okay. And then secondly, this is a 24/7 location, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Approximately, and I know this is probably more of a Wawa-specific question, do you know approximately when deliveries are made? Is there a common delivery schedule for the trucks or vendors or anything like that?
I'll have Patrick Moon answer that
Okay,
question.
sure. No, thank you very much.
Yeah, Patrick Moon with Wawa. Delivery schedules are typically early morning, 6 10:30 or something. We try to keep them off peak, but we can't set schedules for our vendors.
Sure.
Sometimes they just show up and we don't want them to. But generally, we want to have them during normal working hours as much as possible. That's our goal.
Sure.
But we're subject to what our vendors do, unfortunately.
Do you know the approximate time that it takes for a tanker to load a station?
Tanker, don't quote me, I think it's 35 to 40 minutes, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
And then the grocery truck is usually in and out in 20, 25 minutes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Mr. Peterson?
I realize that, does this have all the comments that came from the engineering department along 191st Street?
Is the site plan, is
Yeah.
that, you know,
Mostly.
I am not sure. I think that our engineer was able to hit most of those comments from TAC. We've increased the trail width here along 191st Street and added sidewalks on both sides of the public road there on the east. I think he's hit everything at this point. I know our TAC revisions, I think, are due on Thursday, so we've got a little bit more time to get those in for the plan commission, but I think most of those are reflected here tonight.
And I know you mentioned doing you're going to dedicate right away, but who's paying for the improvements on 191st Street? Is that our? Okay. You know, my concern with this project is, you know, there's a lot of infrastructure, and this is a fairly residential, agricultural part of town still, and, you know, we're kind of spot zoning a 24-hour, you know, it's open all the time on a corner like this, and it feels a little premature without knowing what's going on at the south. And I think it's a big infrastructure cost for us. So I'd like to kind of see some of that return on investment, you know, how long it's going to take to get there. And I still have concerns with the fire station, traffic safety. We're adding lanes. It still looks it's a little confusing what's going on here. And I think there's a lot going on. I have seen cars backed up and parked in front of the apron for the fire station. You know, I have concerns with this intensive a use on this corner this early without knowing what's going on further south.
Can I make a couple of comments, or I'll have Matt come back up. So for the fire station, there is you want to, he'll describe this.
Yeah, for the fire station, they do have an opticom system which triggers when they come out of the garage. It'll trigger the signal at 191st and 37. That, in theory, will flush the system there between their drive and 37. So if any vehicles are queued up in that area, they should get a green and be able to flush that system and give them a clear way to the intersection.
Mr. Boyce, you look like I'm sorry.
I'm ready to whenever
Okay.
Mr. Peterson's done, though.
I think those are my two concerns, just traffic safety and the cost of 191st Street, and then just the spot zoned. It just feels a little out in the middle of nowhere for right now.
And when you say the cost, what are you referring to exactly?
I just think getting the road, I just think the cost of the infrastructure to get the water and the sewer and then some of these road improvements, I understand that Mr. Farr is going to pay for some of that, but I'd just like to see kind of what that return on investment is. What is the cost of the city?
Can Joe come up real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, Council. Thank you. Joe Farr, JDF 191st Street LLC. To answer that question, Councilmember Peterson, the infrastructure is in place. The sewer that we're connecting to, the water, the sanitary is there, size capacity to meet our needs. The city won't spend any money to accommodate this development. We're going to do the road improvements on 191st Street as required by Mr. Homan's comments and TAC review. So we're going to be doing off-site improvements to improve 191st Street to make sure that these issues are addressed. We'll be boring under 191st Street to connect to water and sewer. There won't be any cost to the city. And then, you know, obviously we'll be paying the road impact fees and sewer impact fees to the city. So there won't be a cost for the city actually to bring any of that infrastructure to the site, just to answer that question for you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Boyce.
First off, thank you for all of you guys brought to Noblesville with you guys. It's going to be potentially a third station, so thank you. Looking forward to the one on the west side of town. So voted for both of them, very excited about it. This one, I'm not ready to jump up and down, no, but I'm a lot less excited about and a little bit more possible to say no, just because of the fact that it does, I echo a lot of what Mr. Peterson said. It does feel like while we haven't built much out in that area, that just a 24/7 gas station to be our first thing out there just seems like a lot. And I really wish we as an administration have, and as a council had put together a plan of what we wanted out there and this fit into it. And this just feels like it's a little bit of a spot zoning, like Mr. Peterson said, as to one thing. So not ready to jump up and down and say no, 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 but I'm not nearly as excited about this as your other two. So just to give you that feedback as you go through the process.
Yes, yes. And the spot zoning thing, if I could just briefly touch on that. With the zoning in the comprehensive plan, commercial, that entire corridor, the first piece to go is not necessarily, I mean, if this weren't in the commercial overlay to be commercial in the comprehensive plan, and we were going into the middle of a residential area and saying, hey, we want to throw a gas station in the middle of a residential area, I would use that term spot zoning for sure. With the commercial corridor that's been established in the comprehensive plan, it's hard to tell which will be the first piece to go. A Wawa is a high-end amenity. They do have gas. They do prefer to be known more as a food store with gas than a gas station. But they are a high-end amenity, and I have talked to realtors and a lot of the homes in the neighborhood. Home values, I believe, will increase. There are buyers that look at homes in that area that say it feels removed from amenities, and that's a quote from a realtor, and they feel like they'll get more offers on homes in the area with amenities nearby. So I feel like it's actually the right use for that, and it'll actually spur more development to the south and bring more amenities. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
One more.
Elliot. That's
From
it.
a oh sorry.
No, I'm just
From a
kidding.
traffic perspective, I just want to go back to the traffic study. Prior to the Wawa evaluated at that location, what is the current rating for 191st and 37 going to the potential C? Do we know that?
Yeah, so the analysis right now showed for the existing is C. Now, granted, when you look at the ratings, the level of service, they operate in wide thresholds of delay. So you might have a level of service C that it's all based on delay. So that could be, and I don't know exactly what it is, I could dig it out if I had time, but would be like 20 seconds, let's say, but then you add traffic and the delay goes up by maybe 10 seconds, but it still stays within that band of level of service thresholds. So it's not like, hey, every second represents an A, B, C, D. They all operate on a wide range of delay.
Okay. Do you believe that traffic will increase in that area in any way?
Traffic will absolutely increase in that area. If you add 10 homes, it's going to increase in that area. No matter what you add on that piece of ground, it's going to increase, for sure.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to add on that. One, I won't say nice thing, but one attribute of a gas station or a user that generates a lot of traffic that's dependent on traffic on the adjacent roadway system, a lot of the traffic is pulled off of that, right? It's not all new trips. It's not like building an office building and every trip that comes to that office building is somebody that's leaving their home, going there and going back home. A lot of the traffic is traffic already passing by the site, so.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Johnson.
keeping in the traffic theme, and again, we've heard from a lot of folks, a lot of neighbors, of their concerns of traffic. Do your studies, sir, address the new housing that we're seeing coming north of 191st Street on Promise Road?
They do not directly take in those account. The way we typically handle that, because we just don't know how growth's going to occur, is through the growth rate. And in this case, we took the existing counts, grew them to 2030, and just applied a 3% per year growth rate to all the counts, which is a fairly aggressive growth rate, to be honest with you. That's a pretty high growth rate when you look at typical growth rates, yearly growth rates.
Anything else? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, we appreciate it.
So we'll now open it up for the public comment, and each person has 3 minutes to speak. I would ask that if you're next in line, to not repeat what the person just before you has said, or the same comments over and over. So if you can please keep your comments brief, we would appreciate it. So first one is Brett Van Dyne, and if I mispronounce your name, I really apologize.
Close enough.
Okay.
My name is Brett Van Dyne. I live in the Meadows. I live
You'll
off
give
the
your actual address for the record,
I'm sorry,
please.
10385 Monarch Court, Noblesville, Indiana. A few concerns. One, I know he mentioned about the house to the south. Well, there are houses to the north as well that will be impacted by lighting that wasn't addressed, that fall directly behind the fire station, and behind the little pond there next to the fire station. Those houses will be impacted, and potentially property values impacted about that as well. Traffic, I travel that area every day, but I leave the house at 5:30 in the morning. I don't ever hit the traffic, but my wife does when she leaves to take the kids to school. And then, you also potentially increase the risk of crime in the area. Gas stations have a high rate of crime and robberies. But, there's other places that gas station could go. It could go to the south next to the Lutheran Church. There's no neighborhoods in that location that would be impacted like the Meadows would. So I just think that there's a better place, and that intersection is not the right place.
Thank you very much. Next up is William Cooper.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is William Cooper, and I reside at 10440 East 191st Street in Noblesville, which is about 1,800 feet east of this intersection that we're talking about. I'm here to speak in opposition. I'm aware that this corner is proposed in the future comprehensive plan to be commercial in nature. It's currently zoned low-density R1 residential, and with this being, would have to be rezoned, allowing you to control the uses here. I'm not opposed to commercial uses here as long as the impacts of intensity of use, traffic, safety are taken into account. There are many other less intense uses that could be better serve the surrounding neighborhoods. Going from the current low-density residential use to one of the most intensive commercial uses does not seem appropriate. This intersection, especially on the east side of 37 where this gas station is proposed, is already a huge traffic issue, as we've talked about, creating significant safety issues and impeding the fire and life emergency runs at times. I hope you're fully aware of that. An attempt was made to rectify this problem with construction at the intersection, but it didn't correct the problem. Every morning, the traffic continues to back up to the east, to the Meadows entry, and sometimes even past my driveway, 1,800 feet from the intersection. I sent each of you pictures of this backup, and with all due respect to the traffic study, I live this problem every morning. Even have some in the afternoon. Wawa will only add more traffic to this already congested area, and during peak times does not offer any good exits from the gas station. Traffic will have to exit to the east, and then the traffic's going to be looking for a place to make a U-turn so that they can get back to 37. That's going to happen at the Meadows entry or my driveway. There's a 14-foot drop from the top of the hill near the fire station. This hill will make exiting the gas station and entering the gas station from the east very dangerous. The traffic backups also create safety issues for the fire station and ambulances. I've personally been in the stacked traffic lanes when an emergency vehicle needed to exit the station. The movement of vehicles to try to allow the emergency vehicle out resulted in traffic going into the oncoming lane so that they could allow the vehicles out. which created significant safety issues. Also, as noted in the Wawa executive summary, vehicle traffic is growing in this area, and that's correct. Wawa will only add to the problem that currently exists. Also, 147 homes have been approved at 196 and Promise Road. This is going to add more traffic. For these safety and traffic issues and many other reasons, I ask you to oppose this development. The better location would be 186 and 37.
Thank you very much. Next up is Susie Simpson.
Good evening. I'm Susie Simpson. I'm at 10719 Corn Poppy Court in the Meadows. My neighbors have added a lot, but one concern that I really have is with the additional congestion. Children will be coming across 191st Street, pedestrian traffic, kids on bikes, kids on skateboards, people walking. It's a lot of congestion, a lot of safety issues. I also have concerns with any of the runoff. I know that there's that retention pond there, but currently when we do get a lot of rain, that holds a lot of water in that area that goes under 37 and then gets into that area over there by White River in that cross-country course. My concern is what's going to happen with any additional runoff and pollution. So I think there, again, is a better location. I do understand that that's going to be commercial at some point, but I think a different location for a convenience store gas station is someplace is better than that intersection there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say, I think Corn Poppy is one of the best names of streets we have in this city.
Can I ask a quick
Yeah.
question, Ms. President?
Yeah.
Ma'am, you were talking about kids on bikes, and do we have kids going, and this odd question, but do we have kids going across 37 to go to school or any of that kind of stuff on bikes down there?
Not on bikes, but I've seen kids walking.
Walking?
There's now a crosswalk on the north side of 100.
I knew there was a crosswalk, so I didn't know if kids were going to school there or not.
I don't know if anybody's using it, but NDOT put one in.
I saw they put that, yeah, thank you, sorry.
That's all right. Next up is Brant Bergdahl.
Hi, my name is Brant Bergdahl. I live at 10406 Trillium Court here in Noblesville, Indiana. And I've lived in the Meadows for over 25 years. And I just want to state that I am not anti-development. I would not be able to live and work here in Noblesville. Our kids would not have the opportunities at Noblesville without the draw to live, work, and play that other families have enjoyed. But I wanted to talk about the environmental aspects of this location. And so gas stations, especially when they're filling up, emit toxic pollutants such as benzene. There's no known safe values for benzene. In studies in France, Taiwan, and the UK have shown an increased incidence of childhood leukemia when you live near a gas station. Okay. And I believe Carmel has a 500-foot buffer from a gas station, and current research shows that this should be the minimum amount between a gas station and a place of residence. To the east, there's a house that's within that buffer zone. I would say that also the fire station across the street, it's a residence. There's people that basically live there, right? And they are within that zone. And there's several homes along Canal Way that are probably pretty close to that zone as well. And then also current research suggests, due to the age of children, that a gas station not be built within 1,000 feet of any schools. So we do have a school nearby, Our Lady of Grace, OLG. There's also a school across the State Road 37, White River is there, and some of their extracurricular activity fields are definitely within that 1,000-foot zone. So I just wanted to say that approximately 5 years ago, I was part of a group that purchased an office building in downtown Indianapolis. And part of the due diligence of the bank was that they looked into the history. And there was a slight mention, possible mention of a gas station in its history in the 30s or 40s. And it almost brought the deal to a complete end because of the environmental aspects of it. Okay, so I do know that, and luckily we did not find any further evidence of this, but I do know that this decision will basically condemn this piece of property for eternity to be either a gas station or a former gas station. And I just think that this site, this unique site that's near 2 schools, a vibrant, large community, and a vibrant church as well, OLG across the street, that I think we can all come up with a better use for this property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last card that I have is for Stacy Bergdahl.
Thank you, Madam President. I will keep my remarks very brief because I know I will be repeating some of the things that people have previously said. I live at 10406 Trillium Court in the Meadows. That was my husband, Brant. I've also lived there for over 25 years. I am also a small business owner and have been thrilled with the economic growth of Noblesville over the past years. I'm definitely not opposed to development. But my concern with the proposed Wawa is absolutely the increase in traffic at that intersection, increase in crime drawn to that area, light pollution, and these things would be ever present 24/7. Every day. I worry that those things would decrease my property values as well as the value of the rest of the neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood, and I would hate to see that happen. I believe there's probably a better place. I think, I've been to a Wawa before in other states. I think it probably is a very desired amenity. I believe there's probably a better placement for it, perhaps a little further to the south along 37. Thank you, Council, for listening to my point of view.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, just as a reminder, this will be, the next step is to go to the Plan Commission where you will all have the opportunity to speak again and share your concerns with the Noblesville Plan Commission, and the developers have heard those comments as they move forward in this process. So thank you all very much. We will now move on to new ordinances for discussion. Council to consider ordinance 05-02-25, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Noblesville, Indiana taxable economic development revenue bonds, Series 2025, the Edward Rose Phase 1 project, and the lending of the proceeds thereof to Edward Rose Development Company.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Amy Smith.
Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to kind of talk about the Hyde Park project as a whole and then the individual ordinances. So you may remember that council approved an economic development agreement between the city and MAB Capital Investments for Hyde Park development in 2021. That agreement was amended in 2022 to account for an expansion for the Berkeley project and increase the maximum bond amount to $40 million for infrastructure improvements. I thought I'd just give a little brief update on what has been happening with infrastructure improvements. MAB Capital is working with KSM, who provided an update and will continue to provide periodic updates during the duration of this project. Land development, infrastructure improvements, and residential development were projected to be completed in 2032, but they are tracking well ahead of schedule. All major parcels have been rezoned, with approved preliminary development plans in place for several multifamily commercial office and mixed-use projects. A few of the infrastructure improvements that are completed, they are completed and many are on their way. So the completed improvements include the water line extension south along Brook School Road. Those were completed in 2023. The legal drain reconstruction is also complete. Just to touch briefly on some of the improvements that are in progress. Regional detention for this area is 99% complete. Earthwork is 99% complete. The conversion of flood ground to developable acreage is 93% complete. The 141st Street connection and Sand Creek Bridge is about 20% complete. And park improvements are about 48% complete. And the park As part of this agreement, MAB is creating a passive recreation amenity and will be dedicating approximately 160 acres to the city. They're working with the city to determine when that would happen, and it could happen as early as this year. So before you this evening are two ordinances. The first is the ordinance for the bond for the Edward Rose project, for the infrastructure within this project. As a reminder, this project consists of 295 multifamily units over 2 phases and will include 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. This bond will be for an amount not to exceed $5.5 million, with an interest rate not to exceed 8% for no longer than 25 years, and debt service will be paid from the TIF revenues from the allocation area. And if you want, I can move
Any
on.
questions, Ms. Smith, for this one?
No question, just a comment. We talked about this in Finance Committee. Obviously, council has seen this before a few years ago. We touched specifically on that asset, 141st, and how the proceeds go towards building that crossing. And then I believe, Mr. Light, this might be a better question for you. Do you know where that passive park from an acreage standpoint compares to other parks? It will be one of our largest, correct?
Yeah, one of our largest is around 160.
Okay.
So it's fairly close to First Street.
Okay. Thank you. But yeah, so we had a long discussion about it. in Finance Committee.
Great. We will move on then to ordinance, council to consider ordinance 06-02-25, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the City of Noblesville, Indiana taxable economic development revenue bonds, Series 2025, Hyde Park, J.C. Hart Phase 1 LLC project, and the lending of the proceeds thereof to J.C. Hart Phase 1 LLC, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Mrs. Smith. Thank you. So yes, this is for the J.C. Hart project. I'll just point these out quickly. So this is the Edward Road project right here, and then the J.C. Hart project is right in here, just for your edification. This project consists of 358 luxury apartment homes over 2 phases. Move-ins are expected to start in late 2025. This bond is for an amount not to exceed $6.5 million with an interest rate of 8% and for no more than 25 years. And as with the other one, this one, debt service will be paid with the increment from the TIF area. Ordinance were presented at Finance Committee and did receive a favorable recommendation. Mr. Ball with MAB and his counsel is here if you have any questions for him that I'm not able to answer, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any, Mr. Peterson?
I just want to make a comment. This was a very, very exciting project that came up several years ago, and I'm glad to see it's moving forward. I appreciate your update on the infrastructure, but at some point, it'd be great to get kind of an overview for some of the new council members, just of the project as a whole. I don't want to do it tonight, but I'm really glad to see we drive over there. It looks like a new building coming up every day, and it'd just be great at some point to kind of just catch everybody up to speed and catch our breath. I know phase 1, 2, and 3 were approved much faster than we thought they were, so just some kind of update. Great.
Ms. Reed did offer to hold a work session for council to talk about this
We'll take her
project.
up on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll see you in 2
Thank
weeks.
you.
Thank you very much. Council to consider ordinance number 07-02-25, an ordinance annexing approximately 170.86 acres in Noblesville Township, Resolution RC-18-25, adopting a fiscal plan for property adjacent to the intersection of East 206th Street, north and south sides, and Hague Road, east and west sides, and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Second.
Ms. Shelton?
Good evening. This is a super voluntary annexation of approximately 170 acres. It is the area that is outlined here in the purple. The property is currently vacant, but will be developed as Morse Village. As you may recall, during your December meeting, I believe it was at your last December meeting in 2024, the council approved a planned development for a mixed use to include single-family, multifamily, and some planned business uses. The ordinance is being introduced tonight with a request to set a public hearing for your March 25th council meeting. Discussion of the fiscal plan will occur at that public hearing, and a vote on the resolution, and then the ordinance will be acted upon at your April 15th meeting.
Questions of Ms. Sheldon?
Madam President,
Mr. Davis?
I move to establish a public hearing for ordinance 07-02-25 at our March 25th meeting.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to establish a public hearing for ordinance 07-02-25 at the March 25th meeting. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move on to miscellaneous item number 1. Council to consider acceptance of conflict of interest disclosures. Mr. Peterson.
I have in your packet 3 conflict of interest for 2 of the land acquisitions we're going to see tonight. The Whitecroft piece will be affected by Finch Creek Park. The reason I have 2 on that one is my wife was retained to be the civil engineer for Finch Creek Phase 1. Ironically, before I even knew who she was, so she's been retained for Phase 2, and then we were the architect for Phase 1. We've been retained to do the help with the master planning of that project as well. And then the Janus piece, we've worked with Janus for probably 20 years on their master planning process, and this acquisition will help move that forward, and we're excited to be a part of that one as well.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Mr. Davis.
I move to accept the conflict of interest disclosures.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the conflict of interest disclosures. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. Thank you very much. Council to consider resolution RC-16-25, a resolution concerning the acquisition of real estate. Hello, Andrew Rutherall. Good evening. It says Matt Light on my, so
This is better.
this is better. Well, I don't know better. Just
It's a tough crowd, but
Good evening, Andrew Rodewald, Project Manager, Engineering Department, not Matt Light. I am presenting this because of the engineering project here that is the 166th and Bowdoin roundabout, and then the Bowdoin Road segment that's there north of the, up to State Road 38. So the intersection itself has Fed aid money to it. Highway Safety Improvement Project funds, so it is a safety improvement for the intersection. That is at a 90-10 split for construction, which is wonderful. So this will allow us to move forward with the necessary right-of-way acquisition for those projects.
any questions?
Happy to
of
answer any
Mr.
questions.
The pin behind your ear gave away that you're an engineer, so
I have 2 of them. I lost one. Yeah.
must be a senior engineer.
Carpenter.
Madam President,
Mr. Davis.
I move to approve resolution RC-16-25 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution RC-16-25 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 8-0. And any abstentions? Mr. Peterson. Thank you. 1 abstention.
1 abstention.
Thank you.
Council to consider resolution RC-17-25, a resolution concerning the acquisition of real estate. Now, Mr. Light.
Thank you, Council President, members of council, Matt Light, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Andrew, for standing in on that previous one. In front of you is a resolution that would authorize acquisition of around 16 acres of property near Willoughview Road and State Road 32 on the city's west side. It's currently owned by Janus Developmental Services, a nonprofit that's provided services in the community to support and assist individuals with disabilities for a number of years, and they've been a good partner with the city on a number of fronts, including serving, having representatives on the Noblesville Advisory Council on Disabilities. These parcels have been used in the past for driving range, batting cages, putt-putt golf course, but that have been inoperative for a number of years, and they've been looking to have those developed in a way that aligns with the Janus mission. So we partnered with some stakeholders in the community to present a proposal to them to move that forward in a way that addresses some parks capital project priorities, addresses some housing needs and goals, and also, again, aligns with the Janus mission. So I really appreciate Tim White, who's in the audience tonight, CEO of Janus, and the work that they've done and the willingness to partner with us on this project. Some of the features of the project that we've contemplated that still have design work in front of us to do, but that we'll plan to bring back to you at some point for further briefing and fiscal support would include Trailhead. This is right on the Midland Trace Trail, which at the end of this year will connect the west side to downtown Noblesville. And so we'll provide a trailhead, additional parking, restroom facilities, a dog park as well. Dog park's been identified through our master planning process with the Parks Department as a consistent priority and something that residents desire to add to our inventory. We've also been really excited to work with Bee Free Bakery, and Jennifer Weesey from Bee Free is here tonight. Really appreciate the chance to work with her on a concept that would provide a cafe with the trailhead so that the users of the trail would have a place to stop and get something to eat and drink. And Jennifer and her company have been working for a number of years. You may have seen her at the farmers market here in Noblesville and elsewhere to provide employment opportunities to individuals with disabilities and really healthy food products as well. And then we've been coordinating with Real America, which is a housing developer that focuses on and has developed several successful projects in Hamilton County and elsewhere that provide attainable housing options as well as dedicated units for individuals with disabilities. So if we acquire this acreage, we would continue to move forward with those project partners to develop it along those lines. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have and appreciate your consideration of this resolution.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Light?
Madam President,
Mr. Davis?
I move to approve resolution RC-17-25 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-17-25 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7 in favor. Any against? 1 against? And any abstentions? 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council to consider Resolution RC-19-25, a resolution correcting a Scrivener's error in ordinance number 75-12-24. Joyce Ann Young.
Good evening again. This is an resolution, correcting a Scrivener's error in an annexation ordinance that we previously adopted. Throughout the entire document, there was one error, and it stated the address was 16864 Union Chapel Road. It should be corrected and reflected as 18161 and 18291 Presley Drive. The legal descriptions, the depiction of that ordinance, the actual aerial photograph, all of that was correct. There was one paragraph in there that reflected the address of being on Union Chapel Road. So we're asking that that be corrected so that we can then turn around and actually advertise the annexation ordinance.
Questions or comments?
Madam President,
Mr. Davis?
I move to approve resolution RC-19-25 as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve Resolution RC-19-25 as presented. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0. Thank you very much. Council to receive an annual report of accounts pursuant to IC 36-4-10-5, capital B parentheses, 5 parentheses. Caitlin Kessner.
Caitlin Kessner, Deputy Controller. So this is a report of there's 4 reports actually. The first report is a summary of receipts and expenditures for every fund in the Civil City for 2024. Then there's also a detailed revenue sources document, also for all of the Civil City funds. And then there's those 2 documents, but for the Redevelopment Authority. These are being presented to you in accordance with the long Indiana code that Councilor Wiles read for all of us. And this is just a requirement that the fiscal officer of the city present this to you under oath each year.
Okay. Awesome. Any questions?
Bravo. It's a lot.
Thank you.
Next item is council to receive an annual report for the expired warrants pursuant to IC 5-10-5-11-10.5 for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Ms. Kessler.
So We call these expired warrants under state law, but they're really just checks. Our checks have a life of 2 years when they're written, and under state law, we are to bring a report of all of those expired checks to you all. These are checks where we were not able to get in contact with the proper owner, or they determined that we did not owe us the money or owe them the money in some cases. And so we have written these off, but if any of these people were to come to us and say, city, you owe us $10, then we would go ahead and rewrite them the check.
Great, thanks very much.
I always look for my name, and I didn't see it again this year.
Right. Okay. We have reached the end of the agenda. Any council comments this evening? Mr. Thurston?
Madam President, just want to recognize the city. I was honored enough to MC the Prevail Bowl-a-thon this past weekend, where the city bowled against the county. Big fundraiser supported by both city and county officials. The city did prevail, so to speak, and win the coveted trophy, the traveling trophy, once again this year. But the real winner was Prevail, over $40,000 raised for their organization. A lot of that is on the backs of folks from city and county. Our team was led by Aaron Head, but a lot of good money raised for a great organization here in Hamilton County, and congratulations to the city.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we are adjourned.